Does anyone know if there's any plans for Damian and Bruce Wayne to go on adventures again?
It's like a DCU question, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we had him, you know, obviously we had Damian and Bruce in Superman issue, 2 issues. So they're together. I mean, Damian's, you know, he's out there. I don't know why they don't use him as much in the Batman stuff. I guess every writer has a certain preference. I remember Scott thinking it was he couldn't deal with having a 10-year-old in jeopardy, so he shied away from doing that. So no, I'll be doing anytime you see Batman, he'll have Robin or Damian, you know, doing some fun stuff. So I think good stuff coming up.
I'll say that Damian is a core character in the Batman Turtles second series. I know that's sort of outside the core realm of continuity. I built my detective team pretty specifically out of characters who aren't appearing in other books, so that was part of the core decision why, I get asked a lot why some of the other core Bat family members like Babs and Jason and Dick and Damian aren't a part of that team, and part of it is because each of them are in about 3 or 4 other titles at that point, and once the character, and I think that's been sort of thing, is Damian's core story, I think, in the Rebirth era has been happening between Super Sons and Teen Titans, and that is sort of his current moment, and I definitely think there are plenty more stories to tell with him in Gotham, but I think that's why because the character is getting the spotlight there, and we're building sort of his relationship and his connection to the entire DC universe. That's been the priority the last year or so. Right there.
Back to Harley Quinn. She is a character with a death toll that isn't like strongly run around strong moral compass or anything. How do you deal with that and still make her like the incredible, funny, lovable character that she is?
We sort of wanted to put a lot of that behind her. Like she's less murdery than she is in her. she's still got it.
It's something you see on a label of a new product. Less murdery.
We sort of we try to like she's grown. You know, she's matured a little bit. So there's less.
She's still dangerous though.
But she's still very dangerous. You know, she's just. There are other, we try and touch on the other aspects of her life that aren't the psychopathic killer, because that's not all of who she is, that's just part of who she is. So we try and address more of that, like what she does when she's not killing. so there's a lot of, we figure there's like a lot more to Harley than
Although I will say, once in a while we're writing a book and we're like 2 issues, 3 issues, and I'm like, she hasn't really killed anybody lately. Nobody's really. And then I don't know if you notice when you read it, there's just a random thing happens, and all of a sudden somebody's stuffed in a suitcase, and that's us going, we gotta kind of it's Thursday, we gotta get murdery. It's gonna get a little more murdery today. But that's the fun of the character. I mean, it's not like we have the storyline we're doing now is she's running for mayor of New York, and that goes in a very weird place, and it actually gets very dark for a little while, because it has to, because what happens, it gets very, very dark. And that's a little tough to write that, because we have to, something's at stake, something big is at stake, and she's got to become the real psycho, the real killer in that. So it'll be interesting to see how people read it, because a lot of people read it and it's fun and everything, and it's still fun in there, and that's the thing. It's sort of like Three Stooges sometimes in a way, or it's excessively violent, but it's not the horrible, bloody, crazy stuff. It's more, it's a little more poke in the eyes.
Eviscerate.
Yeah.
there was somebody. Yes.
Yep.
That's just such a great fun idea, and I was wondering whose idea that was and how that crossover came.
I think it was the companies just talking about doing a crossover, and that came up, and happy to say Paul Dini is writing that. So man did the cover for the first issue, but Paul happens to love the Archie characters, and of course Harley, right? So it's the perfect match. I don't really know what's going to go on, but I know it's going to be fun, and it's in the best hands. You know, that's the. I call and Bruce the mom and dad of Harley, so it's in either mom or dad's hands. It depends who's in the room. Yeah, so it should be fun. You want to go right here? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Probably y'all have seen the movie Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, and of course, as you know, at the end of that, it's very heavily implied that at some point Harley became a mom and had children and possibly grandchildren. So do you kind of see that happening to her in her future, where she eventually meets some guy that she can have a healthy relationship with?
You know, and then that's the end, and we no more Harley comics. Is that what you're saying? You know,
With your paycheck, no more paycheck.
I don't see why we can't have an interesting, psychopathic.
seniors, they're seniors.
Anti-health, yeah.
Yelling at
That's
the,
one of the reasons that we have Cyborg in the comic, because we feel like seniors are grossly underrepresented in comics.
Yeah, so they can argue over the Alexa, like that thing on YouTube. I don't know if anybody's seen the AARP Alexa. If you haven't seen it, it's probably the best thing.
The Amazon Echo Silver?
Yeah, Amazon Echo Silver, yeah. You know, it's one possibility, right? So when they do those anime, that's one possibility. We kind of change it every day, you know. It's comics. We don't really want to
End of the story.
Right. If they said to us, though, they call said, we want you to do the end story for Harley, the last story. That would be fun to do. I think they did it in Marvel with Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
With, you know, old man Logan kind of thing.
Well, I guess maybe more
old
of the
lady.
question was, is she capable of having a healthy relationship after the Joker having a toxic one? Do you think she's capable of that?
I don't know, because she is attracted to drama and nuttiness. So I don't know. I mean, she is capable of having kids.
I got a question. How many people have a very drama-fueled person in their life? Does everybody have like somebody they know? How are their relationships going? Any ideas? No? Not going well? No? You put a finger to his head. Okay, there you go. I think it would make it for an interesting book, though. I agree.
On this side, back in the back row.
More on the cinema topic, do you get asked often to give your advice or input on storylines that come up in films?
Absolutely not. I gotta say, actually, it obviously didn't happen for Jonah Hex, and no, we really don't. I wish they did, because they trust their characters so well in every month and every week of the character. The good part is to have somebody like Jeff Johns up there who, you know, writes all the characters. So at least they have Jeff up there. But nobody here, has anybody been asked to do anything? Pete?
Remember when the GL movie came out, I got the script and we were, you know, looking at it.
How'd that go?
I don't know, how did that movie come out?
I actually was sent the Jonah Hex script, and I read it, and I said, here's my issues with it. And they're like, no, we weren't asking you, we just wanted you to read the script. I was like, okay, well, thank you. You know,
they have their brain trust, and then we have ours, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, the good thing is that the guys that write the movies don't really come, you know, they don't really come to us for anything either. We don't bother them, they don't bother us, kind of thing. One day that'll change, and in some films it has. Obviously, there's a lot of films out where, you know, we got guys like Mark Moore and, you know, a lot of different people involved in things.
He does his own stuff, right?
He does his own stuff too. But, you know, some of the other companies, you know, we have Jeff Loeb and Joe Quesada have a lot to do with, you know, the Marvel stuff, the TV, the Netflix stuff, and you can tell that has comic book brains behind it. There's some great stuff going on there. We have to, you know, as creators, we have to step out and do our own things. That's why creator-owned books are so important for us, because then we have control of what happens with the characters. But I hope one day they have a little more faith in us, or the filmmakers say, hey, you know what, that was good in the comic, why don't we grab that and do that? So I hope that answers that. I expect DC to call me later tonight. But like I said, we do have Jeff up there, so that's the big plus. You know, Jeff is, nobody loves these characters more than Jeff.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it. Jeff.
Yeah, the gatekeeper, we have a good gatekeeper. That's
Yeah, nobody loves him more than Jeff. So that's why the WB shows are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All that stuff is great.
Was Wonder Woman the first movie that Jeff did have input on?
No,
I
Jeff.
don't think so.
Yeah, Jeff worked on Green Lantern, right? And Jeff worked with he had on Batman, Superman, and I know the JLA movie he's worked with, and you know Jeff is. I think all the films that go through there, Jeff, you know, works with the writers, the guys that come on, and I think at one point he was writing with Ben Affleck. Right? I don't know what happened with that, but you know he was writing the next Batman movie with Ben. But you know, it's unlike a comic book where it's like, you know, it's 3 people or 4 people. If you ever will sit through the credits of a movie, all the way to the end, it's like 10,000 people, you know, and they're writing, and then the writers, sometimes it's like, you know, 7 writers and then 140 producers, and that means everybody has input.
Right.
So it's kind of tough to get like this really clean, when a superhero movie is good, we're always like, yes, you know, because it's like, even with all the craziness, somehow this thing, Wonder Woman was great, like we loved Wonder Woman, and it happened to fall into the right people's hands, you know, so sometimes it's people's visions, it's all different, everything through a different lens, right? So. Sir?
You spoke about Clayface earlier, and one of the things that you talked about the important, strong, supporting cast. Sometimes there are certain characters in each of your books and writers and even artists that I love some of the secondary characters that you just fall in love with, because when they come on screen and go, I don't care what Harley's doing, let me do with Cyborg and see what Cyborg is doing or what the greatest groups of Harley girls are doing, whatever they're doing. Is there a secondary, each of you are there secondary characters in each book that you just fall in love with and you just kind of, I have to push away and focus on Harley, I have to focus on Superman or Batman? Are there characters like that in your book right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've made a whole, like, you know, family for Harley, not actually her blood relatives, but like she's just taken up with like the freak show in Coney. There's actually a freak show in Coney Island.
They approve of the comic too. Oh wow! They told us that they love the comic. Yeah.
The other point, I want you to talk about, when I see your columns, and I want to finish that to the secondary character, but New York in your column, like talk about how that's kind of a character in Harley Quinn also. In my opinion, I think New York is a character also.
Yes, yes it is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the quintessential New York boy.
Yeah, if you read the comic, it's actually correct with neighborhoods, and when things happen, I always tell John, I'm like, that's west and that's east, and the Bell Parkway is there. So make sure it's going, and it's like, we don't even know if anyone catches that, but it's like everything is aimed the right way, and how.
And in fact, this is how anal retentive I am. When they had the Scatapult issue and they were throwing bags of animal poo, I actually, went on Google Maps and figured out what degrees, Coney Island is to where the J train, it goes in and out of Williamsburg, and figured out where you would have to aim the Scatapult in order to get a bag of poo to hit a train on the tracks.
See the love and care we put in.
And that's why I always take too long to do stuff.
Well, it was funny too, because putting her in Coney Island is a real place, right? And DC's pretty famous for Gotham and Metropolis and everything. And I don't know why, but we just said no. We're going to put her in a real place and deal with the fact that people are going, okay, but where is Coney Island to Gotham? And I said, well, you got to take a train.
You can scatapult yourself to Gotham. It's not that far away. It's actually not close to New York. I think somebody said it was supposed to be somewhere in New Jersey. Right?
Still not clear where.
Still not clear.
I think there was one map in the 90s that kind of put Gotham in South Jersey on the shore and Metropolis in Delaware on the shore. So that there's kind of...
They're almost like sister cities or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and I think my brain came from the fact I grew up, Fantastic Four was one of my favorite comics, so it's like they were in Manhattan, You know, and I lived in Brooklyn, and I was like, oh, I could just go to Manhattan and see that building. And it's a City Corps building. It looks a little like the FF building in a weird way, you know.
And you used to hang out there.
And I used to hang out there. We used to sneak up to the roof. This is before 9/11 and security. And when I was in high school, me and my buddies would buy like a 6-pack of beer and a bunch of comics, and we'd go sneak up to the roof of the City Corps building and just hang out there all day and drink beer and read comics. This was like 90-something stories, 60-something stories.
It's high.
And the space where we sat was a little wider than this table and sunk it in. Look at me, I think it was on the top. It was crazy. I don't even want to talk about there were no bathrooms up there and what we did, but it was before the world was so, you know, shut down and shut up. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, next question.
You over there.
This is not really a question, but it's a theory I've always kind of liked, that Gotham and New York are the same city. They're both New York. One is daytime, one is nighttime.
Oh, that's fun.
That's interesting.
It's like Dark City. It's not
Who threw that out there? Who threw that
I've
out?
heard that for years. I've also heard the theory that someone will say you're doing the Jetsons, or that the Flintstones are actually underneath the Jetsons.
Oh, wait, okay, so when they asked me to
One
pick,
was Stone Age and one
when they
Boy
picked,
went up and the Warlocks went down.
when they asked me to pitch the Jetsons, I said, can I have it so, you know, because the houses are on those, their homes are on those long stakes. I said, can the bottom be like the Flintstones? And they don't know what's up those? And they're like, no. They're like, absolutely not. Because I just wanted the Jetsons like once in a while throw a thing off the side and then friend just like grab something. It would have been a better universe.
Cool.
Yeah. But they absolutely said no to that. So, what a good.
That theory, I think they'd be like, you cannot put food. Because the
I-
Jetsons at that point would be real jerks.
I have something in the Jetsons that by the end of the 6 issues, it actually leads towards Flintstones in an odd way. But just you see, it's just a nod to the beginning of something. So hopefully you'll appreciate it.
All right.
Going back to Super Sons kind of, but I just wanted to know, like, how difficult is it for you to write Damien and John to make so vastly different characters and make them work well together?
It's easy when you have a 15-year-old kook son. He's both of them. Sometimes at the same time, other times at different times, but it's easy to draw from him and his friends, but mostly him. He was obviously younger when I first started Batman and Robin, and I looked at him a lot just for inspiration in a lot of things. I mean, even little things you pick up where, you know, as a writer, you're always you never stop writing, and we were just in the garage a couple years ago, and he literally, like, you know, took my sneaker and then held it up against, you know, my sneaker, and he was looking at it, and I didn't even know I was watching him. And then, you know, I just put that scene in Batman and Robin, and, you know, Bruce looked over and he saw Robin putting his boot against his big boot, and those little human touches, for me, makes a lot of difference in telling a story. It says a ton without saying anything.
I love that. I love that you did that. That's so cool.
Thank you. But yeah, so it's drawing from real life is a lot of fun with that stuff. So, and you just got to gear it up in your head, and as long as you can just kind of, I mean, we all have that little part of being a kid in our hearts, and you just got to be able to tap into it too.
Okay. So I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, so this is more of like a pitch. Would you want to see, I would love to see Harley Quinn, for example, in the Batman 66 universe, or
I think she was,
an Earth
right?
2 universe,
Yeah.
or a Super Friends episode. So do you have any ideas for what would be a good reinvention?
Do you draw?
Sorry?
Do you draw? Are you an artist?
No, no.
I was going to say,
I'm more-
do you write?
I could write probably
Writing
more.
a good script.
That would be nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, I think she was in Batman 66. They put Harley in, one of the comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were listening to you.
Nice.
But you know, if you can think about it, they're probably going to do it. That's the
It does
way
seem like that, yeah.
comics. Yeah. So it'll happen eventually.
Thanks.
I know it's a little off topic, so I apologize, but you've mentioned the Jetsons a couple of times.
Yeah.
So we've seen Hanna-Barbera imprints from DC recently, and we've seen things like Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. We've also seen things like the Flintstones. And the Flintstones was an incredible, a little bit subversive, and I was actually shocked that it went as long as it did. Now, your take on the Jetsons,
Yeah.
which way do you see yourself falling more towards?
I want to say Black Mirror a little bit, if you understand what I'm referencing.
Yeah.
It's a tiny bit dark in the technology department, but it's still George and the family. So it's about a family and things outside the family, kind of pulling them apart and then bringing them back together. So it's still basically focusing on them. It's not George running on the conveyor belt and tripping and, you know, the dog going crazy and, you know. I mean, we did do, you know, I did in a short story that was in one of the annuals, I made George's mother decide to, she was very old, so she decided to have her brain transplanted into Rosie the robot.
So that's all your idea then? It was
Yeah, that was
like
mine.
backs. Oh wow.
Yeah, that was my idea, because I figured if you're gonna have an annoying robot, it could be your mom. You know? And so George is never without his mom. Now she's this robot alive forever. But in the future, you have a choice. You can either go, you know, naturally, or you can be transferred into some piece of technology. And the mother decided that, well, the kids, you know, Elroy and Judy is still around. She wants to be around for the kids, so she decides to be transplanted into a robot that is also a helper around the house. So grandma just wants to stay grandma, basically, in the story. I also, you know, took the regular characters, and Jane actually works for NASA, and George is like the only guy that knows how to use a screwdriver.
The last guy knows how to use tools.
Yeah, it's tool guy, and Elroy's a little older, a couple of years older, and he's got a girlfriend, and then Judy's a film student who in the future, in this time, they use their dreams and then they edit their dreams into films, so everybody gets to show their dreams as films, you know. And it's a little bizarre, but at the same time, it's still the same family. If you know the Jetsons, you'll get everything going on. And then there's a threat, and it's 6 issues long, and it's very bizarre. And as I tell Dan, I always go, "Who's gonna buy this?" And he's like, "Just write it." And I'm like, "Okay, great." That's not my job. Who's gonna buy it? But the Hanna-Barbera books have been so much fun. I mean, they're so unexpected, and even the crazy, when I did the Jonah Hex, Yosemite Sam, you know, all these crazy books. But it's sort of like, that's what we're supposed to be doing with comics, is just mashing up and having complete fun with characters that everybody's familiar with. And I think there's something, I think it's a bold thing that DC did, doing this kind of project, and I'm happy to see more of it. You know, we always think about Looney Tunes and the regular characters. It's just
Think about it. Watch it every day still.
Yeah, we still watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually turning my 12-year-old next door neighbor onto Looney Tunes, and you know, he comes over every few weekends, and he's like, "Looney Tunes today?" And I'm like, "Okay."
You gotta keep it going.
Yeah.
Gotta keep it going. Back there.
Yes.
I support the idea of Batman not killing. That's like important. That doesn't rule Superman. But so Green Arrow kills when he needs to, and it works for him. He doesn't, you know, go off the rail by killing when he has to. So I was wondering what your opinion is on like the context difference, why Oliver can pull it off, but
I think it's Bruce and Ollie are very different characters. For those who didn't hear, it's the question is how can, like, Green Arrow, if he needs to, he never wants to, but if he needs to, he will kill a villain. But Batman doesn't. And why is that different, and why are they both still heroes? Like, and I think the thing is Ollie, like, Ollie's drive is much different. And the idea of Green Arrow is not, it like doesn't have the same weight to Oliver Queen as the idea of Batman has to Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is this like larger than life figure, and it's also it's what he started becoming when he was an 8-year-old boy, and he became it in the face of murder. And that is something that, to then become the thing that he would be stepping into the shoes of Joe Chill in that moment for him, and it would break him in a way. So that's why I think that barrier in him as a character is more unassailable than all of that. It's interesting in alternate stories to play with what happens when he does cross that line. Like, for instance, for all of the For the metal crossovers, I'm having a lot of fun with these evil Dark Knights that are popping up, and I'm writing the Batman Who Laughs one-shot, which is basically the core idea of that is it's a Batman where he is finally pushed to kill the Joker, but the Joker's last laugh is that there is, in his dying breath, is like a nanovirus that rewrites his brain and shuts down the moral centers in Batman's brain. So it's Batman that has the morals, like the moral mindset of the Joker, and it's the most terrifying figure ever. And that's really fun and terrifying to write for an issue, but it's like, I think it also goes to show that like, this is like when he talks about the slippery slope and all of that, it is a slope towards extreme darkness. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay, listen, we're at the hour mark, so I want to thank all of you guys, not only for supporting our work, but for actually showing up here today and listening to us ramble on. I want to thank you guys, and hopefully we see you on the floor at the con. And again, thanks from everybody up here.
Thanks for everybody.